why landlording is 1. Unethical, and 2. why landlords are unnecessary middlemen for the distribution of housing in society. So first, imagine this scenario. If I were to own a piece of land between a town and a water reservoir, and then proceed to charge a fee so the people have access to the water, then I have not created any value. The only thing I'm doing is sitting on land and extracting wealth from a basic necessity. This is the basic premise of landlording and why the left sees it as a parasitic relationship. It's basically the same principle for housing. The landlord just sits on a basic necessity since people need to work, live, eat, and do regular human stuff. I also want to note that most of the things I'm going to be discussing come from Adam Smith, the father of capitalism, not Marx. So Adam Smith viewed landlords as an inherently inefficient institution, even in capitalism. So the first argument is, but don't landlords provide value by doing the repairs and groundskeeping? How is that parasitic? Now, the value being generated for these services don't come from the landlord. Usually they come from the people doing the repairs themselves. So the landlord is therefore a middleman to them and can be cut out entirely. Furthermore, if the landlord does the repairs themselves, as some do, the value that those repairs generate is for themselves, not for you. Those repairs only serve to increase the value of the property that they own. If the tenant must do the repairs themselves, they are giving even further value to the landlord beyond the rent by helping or to maintain or increase the value of the landlord's property. They keep all of the value of the labor themselves while extracting increasingly large portions of yours. Now they extract above and beyond the value they provide. Also now have a huge problem in a lot of cities now where landlords are raising rates where there is any significant increase in wages or an influx of higher wages jobs. So they're able to intercept any community growth in its infancy and stop it for their profit. So this negates any community growth and prevents people from enriching themselves. Now, second thing people try to argue is that they make housing affordable. Now, this is demonstrably false. They don't actually make housing affordable. As discussed earlier, they do the opposite. In the case of people who cannot afford their own land, landlords own the land and then extract wealth from those who have no alternative but to rent. Their only choice for those people is who to rent from, since they cannot afford a property. Because of landlords. They are not actually providing anything in this case. Instead, they prey upon the poor from passive income. When we talk specifically about absentee landlords who don't actually go to their property and maintain it, they actually decrease the supply of available land in an area, land and housing, which increases the price of the land by simple supply and demand theory. This is not to mention that private ownership of housing and distribution, driven by profit rather than necessity, is the main reason gentrification exists in towns and cities. Great example of this happening is the 17 million empty houses in the US and over 570,000 homeless people. So this disparity is hilarious. That should not be happening. Everyone deserves to be housed, and it's a fundamental human right in the Declaration of Human Rights. So, I think that is just pathetic. Another argument is the risk argument, that landlords are taking a risk by buying the house and doing the repairs. First of all, how is it a risk to buy a house? First of all, houses naturally increase in value unless you live in a pretty bad area. And second of all, everyone needs a place to live. The only real risk you take is that no one will want to buy your property at the high price you put it on the market, in which case you'll have to lower the price. That's simply it. And the worst thing that could happen, you have multiple pieces of property and you won't be beginning on the street. You can always just sell one and live comfortably. Unlike the people who rent from you, who are taking the real risk of going bankrupt or into debt to pay for their residence, for the mortgage of the landlord, thinks that everyone deserves housing. Everyone deserves to live a life free from fear and anguish from lack of housing. So yeah, another argument is that landlords just use the system to their advantage. So they're just making their way in like everyone else. Wouldn't leftists just do that if they had the money or capacity to do so? No, we would not, as we're not comfortable with blackmailing, and the statement has like no evidence behind it either. We just hate landlords. Why would we want to become one? First of all, people need to be housed. We should not have to live on the unpredictable and like hard conditions of the street. That's just bad. The landlords essentially blackmail people into having to pay them what they want for what they need, when it should be free with public housing. Second of all, like, landlords never earned the money for that. Now, any problem you have, they barely fix because it costs money to upkeep property. I don't care if they have a family to feed. They should feed them with dignity, with a real job that rewards them, where they actually work for their money instead of exploiting the money of people who work hard. Another argument I hear a lot is that isn't everything unethical under capitalism? So yeah, like, in the case of a mom and pop landlord, like, the kind of generosity of like a landlord that is, let's say, a handyman that does everything for you and rents a property for very cheap, cheaper than public housing, let's say. That kind of generosity is usually disincentivized by the free market. So spending the bare minimum on improving human conditions and quality of life in the pursuit of profit is more rewarded. So due to the system, this would be an exception. That is basically why the left hates landlords. Now, if you have any other questions, I will happily answer them in the comments. So, thank you for watching, and I will see you all next time.